Have you ever felt that there's something within you that not everyone understands? An invisible force, a deep vibration that separates you from the noise of the world and connects you to something greater. It's no coincidence. What you carry inside is powerful and spiritual. Today we're going to explore 5 revealing signs that you possess a powerful spiritual energy through the wisdom of the great Carl Jung. Get ready to uncover truths you may have always felt, but never had the words to describe. If you've ever felt different, this message is for you. The first sign: people change when they're near you. Not because of what you do, not because of what you say, but because of what you radiate, without even realizing it. Some people bring comfort with gestures, others with words. You do it simply with your conscious existence. Your energy field has a particular structure. It absorbs, reflects, organizes. It works like a distortion-free mirror, like an invisible container for what others can't hold on their own, and that creates powerful effects. Some people feel peace in your presence without knowing why. Others feel vulnerable, as if something in you invites them to lower their guard. You can't control this reaction, but you've seen it enough times to recognize it. It's as if your presence speaks a language the body understands, even if the mind doesn't. Animals often approach you without fear. Children look at you as if they're remembering something they'd forgotten. People you've just met share stories they haven't told in years. That's no coincidence. Your energy builds invisible spaces where authenticity is allowed to emerge, and that ability, far from being common, is deeply transformative. You don't try to please others, and yet you inspire trust. You don't seek to validate what someone feels. You legitimize it with your presence. You don't interrupt to correct, nor do you rush to control. You allow others to exist exactly as they are. That openness, which seems so natural to you, is an emotional luxury very few people offer. It's not about charisma. It's not social talent. Your energy doesn't seduce. It invites. It doesn't conquer. It accompanies. And that invitation is so subtle, so honest, that the person receiving it feels they can finally rest, not just in their body, but in their soul. In a world full of fake closeness, you connect without strategies, and that makes you a silent anchor. You're not trying to save anyone, you simply allow yourself to be. And that seemingly simple act is profoundly healing. Your mere presence opens internal doors, not by imposing truths, but by making it easier for others to find their own. You don't give answers, but you help others dare to ask the right questions. Not every space can hold the truth. Your energy can. And that, whether you say it or not, whether you seek it or not, whether you're aware of it or not, changes everything. You don't force deep conversations, but when you speak, the superficial fades away. It's as if your words move with the rhythm of something ancient, something essential, like each sentence holds a story that isn't told but is felt. People don't understand why they feel more honest around you, but you do. It's not that they speak more, it's that they finally hear themselves. Your energy doesn't push, it doesn't pull, it reflects. And when someone sees themselves clearly, they can't keep lying in the same way. You don't ask them to open up, but something in you reminds them they don't have to stay closed. There's something about the way you are that slows down time. A conversation with you isn't measured by minutes, but by what it leaves behind, how it breathes afterward, what still echoes in the silence. And though at times it's been hard to carry that ability, though being so available has drained you, your energy has not hardened. You've learned to preserve your essence without dimming it, and that has only made you more powerful. Your energy isn't intense because it's loud, it's intense because it's aligned. There's harmony between what you feel and what you transmit. And that alignment is magnetic to those who've grown used to chaos, disguised as normality. You don't fake anything. You don't need to adjust your vibration to every space. If something doesn't resonate with you, you don't force it. If someone vibrates differently, you don't try to convince them. Your way of protecting your energy is not by excluding, it's by staying centered. That too is felt. And that's why you're often perceived as too much, too calm for a fast-paced world, too direct for those who live in denial, too sensitive for those who've built armor out of numbness. But you didn't come here to dim your light so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. You came to hold it, even when no one else understands why it shines the way it does. You don't speak with volume, you speak with truth, and truth, even whispered, has weight. Some people feel instantly connected to you, others can't bear to be too close. That's not your fault. Your energy acts like a tuning fork, and those who aren't ready to look within confuse you with discomfort. You don't need to change that. You don't need to explain it, just acknowledge it. Your energy is special because it transforms, not because it tries, not because it decorates, not because it competes, but because it expresses, and in doing so, it reminds others of what they too are capable of feeling. Not all transformation happens through words. Sometimes all it takes is a presence that demands nothing, and without realizing it, you have become that kind of presence. Some people run from silence because it confronts them. You, on the other hand, inhabit it like a temple, and when others are with you, they learn, through energetic imitation, that silence is not emptiness but naked truth. A truth that needs no arguments, only space. You don't create these effects because you plan to. They happen because you've walked the path inward, many times, because you know yourself well enough not to react from noise. And in that quiet self-mastery, you create something very rare, energetic safety. In your field, what's out of place begins to align, not by force, but by resonance, as if your vibration harmonizes what the other doesn't know how to balance. Your presence doesn't aim to be right. It seeks coherence, and true coherence always brings relief. There are moments when someone crosses paths with you and says, "I don't know what it is, but you make me feel better." That's not chance. That's sensitivity in the form of energy, a sensitivity that has survived disappointments, betrayals, and losses, and still chose not to shut down. That invisible choice to keep feeling when it would have been easier to shut off is one of the most powerful sources of your energy. Because it's not naive, it's conscious. It doesn't come from ignorance. It comes from choice. You have chosen not to protect yourself with indifference. You have preferred openness, even knowing it hurts more. And that openness, transformed into presence, is what others feel. That's what touches them, even when you're silent. There's something in you that offers itself, a kind of attention that can't be taught, a calm that can't be bought, a depth that can't be faked. And even if not everyone knows how to value it, those who need it recognize it instantly, not with logic, but through vibration. Some confuse it with mysticism, others with empathy, but it's both simpler and more complex. It's a way of being in the world that doesn't disguise sensitivity as weakness, but turns it into guidance. That is what makes your energy so special. Not its intensity, not its uniqueness, but its authenticity, vibrating without fear, even when the world pushes you to shut down. Sign number 2. You detect what others don't see, even when everything appears calm. You don't need someone to say they're not okay to know it. A situation doesn't need to explode for you to feel that something's off. You sense it before it happens, as if your energetic field had more subtle, more refined senses, more attuned to the invisible than to obvious noise. You're in a place and something doesn't fit. The light, the temperature, the way someone smiles. You couldn't explain it logically, but you know something is out of place. And you know it with a certainty that can be unsettling if you try to put it into words. Sometimes you've doubted yourself because no one else seems to notice. But over time, life has shown you that your reading was spot on, that the feeling you had, even if intangible, was real. Most people just haven't yet developed the sensitivity to interpret it. Your energy works like an emotional radar. It picks up on variations that escape conventional language. A voice that cracks just slightly, a breath that quickens, a silence that lasts too long. Where others see calm, you feel repression. Where everyone celebrates, you sense unspoken sadness. And this isn't something you choose. It's a channel that's always been open. One that, if not cared for, can exhaust you. Because living in tune with what others ignore is a burden if you don't have tools to filter it. You've had to learn not to step in every time you feel something is off. You've learned that not everything you pick up needs to be confronted. And just because you can feel it doesn't mean you have to carry it. That's been a deep lesson. The ability to perceive does not equal the responsibility to fix. There are those who confuse your sensitivity with exaggeration. They say you imagine things, that you dramatize, that you see problems where there are none. But in truth, you don't see problems. You see the roots. You feel what remains unspoken. Your energy connects directly with the background, not the surface. And that gives you a different understanding of people. You're not guided only by what they do, but by what they radiate. Some people behave well, say the right thing, do what's expected, but you know when it's not real. You don't need evidence. Your body registers it before your mind can process it. Being near you can be unsettling for those who've learned to live behind a mask, because your mere presence reveals what's misaligned, not because you call it out, but because you embody something different, a kind of energetic honesty that lays bare what's been denied. Your special energy doesn't just perceive what's happening, it also picks up on what's about to happen. A subtle discomfort before conflict erupts, a distance forming before separation is named, a bottled-up emotion that starts pressing from the inside. And you know it, not as a prediction but as a reading, as if the emotional field speaks to you in symbols, in micro-changes, in intuitions that settle in your chest without asking permission. This precise sensitivity has often made you feel disconnected from your surroundings, not because you don't understand others, but because rarely does anyone understand what you perceive. While everyone else keeps moving forward, you pause, not from hesitation but from awareness, not from doubt, but from clarity. You're used to reading the language no one teaches, the tension in someone's shoulders when they say they're fine, the eyes that shift when a touchy subject is brought up, the energy in a room that suddenly gets heavy for no apparent reason. You notice all of that, and more, and even though you've tried to ignore it just to fit in, it's impossible. Your body reacts, sometimes with fatigue, sometimes with anxiety, sometimes with an inner silence that feels like a warning. You've learned to trust that, because when you don't, life shows you that what you felt was true all along. Your energy is like an open channel between the subtle and the obvious, and that's why you often sense the vibe before anything happens, not by magic, but because the soul listens too, and you've fine-tuned that ear. A space with unresolved emotional tension clings to your skin. A place where hard truths have been spoken leaves you vibrating for hours. When someone sits next to you, they're not just with a person, they're with a tuned emotional antenna, a presence that senses even what the other is trying to hide from themselves. And that can be scary, but it can also be healing. You've learned to use this perception not to control but to accompany others with more humanity. Because seeing behind the masks has taught you to feel compassion, even for those who act from pain, even for those who deny what they feel because they never learned how to feel it any other way. You don't need to expose it. You don't need to name everything you intuit. You've learned that energetic respect also includes silence, and that not everything you perceive has to be shared. Sometimes it's enough to hold space with understanding. Sometimes it's enough just to know what's happening without forcing any change. And that is where a deep part of your energetic power lies. You don't expose what you see, you hold it like sacred data. You only intervene when it's necessary, when there's openness, when there's permission. Because your sensitivity isn't just perceptive, it's also ethical. Over time, you've discovered that this way of feeling can become an internal compass, more precise than any advice. You've made decisions no one understood at the time simply because something inside you said, "This is not the place." And later life confirmed that intuition wasn't fantasy. It was energetic reading. You've left places where everyone else stayed. You've let go of connections that seemed stable but whose vibration was suffocating you. You've said no when everything seemed perfectly aligned on the outside, but your wise, silent body said otherwise. That ability to feel what is unspoken has saved you more times than you can count. But it's not a form of survival, it's a form of connection. A way of navigating life, not through analytical thought, but through a deep sensitivity that cuts through the obvious and recognizes the essential. You know something is off not because you analyze it, but because you sense it. Not because someone tells you, but because you feel it. And even though that may disconnect you from the world's logical rhythm, it's exactly what keeps you aligned with your truth. That energetic perception has also made you selective, not out of judgment but resonance. You can't share space with those who vibrate from manipulation, ego, or constant denial, not because you reject them, but because your system can't tolerate prolonged dissonance. And while you try to be compassionate, there's something in you that pulls away, before your mind finds an excuse. It's a subtle withdrawal, not dramatic, not reactive, just a quiet stepping back that says, "This is not for me." And that small act, outwardly small but inwardly huge, is a sign of how well you know yourself. Your energy is special because it recognizes the boundaries your mouth hasn't yet spoken. And even if it took you time to trust that language, now you know that when you ignore it, you fall out of balance. When you listen to it, everything inside you aligns. This kind of sensitivity also influences your creativity. You don't create from effort, you create from connection. There are moments when ideas simply download, What would take others weeks to build arrives whole to you. Complete thoughts, sentences that appear as if dictated, solutions that emerge from silence. It's not fleeting inspiration, it's coherence, vibrating. When your energy is clear, everything that flows from you carries that same clarity, even in the everyday. Your way of feeling transforms the simplest things into something meaningful. You notice gestures, details, symbols that others miss. You remember what someone didn't say, but their eyes screamed. You store small, almost imperceptible signs that later make perfect sense. And that's another thing that sets you apart. You don't forget what matters, even if it was never spoken. Because for you, energy doesn't lie. That's why you've learned to read the world as if every moment were a conversation with the invisible. Sign number 3, you need time alone to return to yourself. It's not isolation nor rejection of the world, it's a deep energetic need. The need to clear out noise that isn't yours, to cleanse all that you've absorbed without meaning to remember your own frequency after spending too long immersed in other people's vibrations. For you, being alone isn't the same as emptiness, it's restoration. It's in solitude where you recover your center, where you clearly feel what's yours and what isn't, where you find answers that don't appear in the middle of the noise. Your energy expands in silence. Your awareness sharpens when you're not exposed to external interference. That's why, even when you love someone deeply, you still need moments of retreat, moments where no one asks anything from you, where you don't have to explain, please, organize, or respond. The world has made productivity a virtue, but you know there's a kind of growth that isn't visible from the outside, a kind of nourishment that can't be measured in results, but in inner alignment. And that alignment only happens when you allow yourself to be with yourself, without distractions, without masks, without roles. Just you, with your energy fully present and unconstrained. There are people who fear being alone because they're uncomfortable with what shows up in the silence. But for you, silence brings order. It's where everything becomes clear again. It's where doubts dissolve, the ones others try to solve by doing too much. In those spaces of solitude, your energy doesn't dim. It deepens. It doesn't weaken, it strengthens, like a well that needs protection so it doesn't dry up, like a flame that burns brighter when the wind dies down. Your need for solitude isn't disconnection, it's protection. It's self-listening. It's energetic intimacy. And when you return from that space, you come back clearer, more whole, more you. Because solitude for you isn't a pause, it's medicine. In solitude, you're not running from the world, you're returning to yourself. And that return is essential, because your energy functions like an open field. It picks up, absorbs, connects. But without breaks, without retreat, that field starts to blend with others. You start carrying what isn't yours, thinking from emotions that weren't born in you, living from demands you never chose. That's why you can't stay disconnected from your inner world for too long. It's not a preference, it's a vital need. Like air, like water, like sleep. You've noticed that when too much time goes by without solitude, your energy fragments. You feel more reactive, less centered, more likely to say yes when you mean no. Your intuition gets cloudy. Your sensitivity becomes disorganized. But when you step away, something realigns. It's not about doing anything. It's about returning to the silence that reorders your vibrational field. Sometimes just a few minutes of stillness are enough. Other times your body asks for whole days of calm. Far from the noise, and far from the artificial, far from the voices demanding quick answers. And in that pause, something deeper is revealed. Ideas that hadn't come show up like revelations. Stuck emotions begin to move. Physical sensations you had ignored start to show what your body had been whispering all along. Solitude becomes a channel of wisdom, not from rational reflection, but from a finer listening, the kind that comes from the soul finally having space to speak. While others seek distraction, you seek reconnection. And that is not always understood. They've told you you're distant, they've judged you for disappearing, but what they don't understand is that your withdrawal is not indifference, it's self-care. You cannot give from a place of depletion. You can only offer your energy when you've had time to nourish it, to empty what is excessive and recover what is essential. And when you do, your energy becomes clean, strong yet gentle, present yet light, able to hold space without absorbing, to accompany without exhausting, to love without losing itself. Your time alone is not a barrier, it's the soil where you bloom. And from there, from that root strengthened in calm, everything you give to the world vibrates higher, clearer, truer. Being alone also allows you to release tensions you didn't even know you'd accumulated. Because when you're with others, your energy naturally adapts. It dims if the environment is fragile. It expands if there's receptivity. It retracts if it senses danger. But with yourself, in your sacred space, it no longer has to adjust. It can simply be. And it's in that energetic freedom that you return to your original frequency, a frequency that isn't fixed, because you too evolve, but that holds a core rhythm, a bass melody that always brings you home. You've discovered there are places where your energy recovers more easily, spaces with nature, with soft light, with few stimuli. You don't need elaborate rituals. Sometimes it's enough to look at the sky, to wet your hands with cold water, to light a candle without speaking to anyone. Small acts that seem insignificant to others, but for you function as silent realignments. Your solitude is not selfishness, it's alchemy, a transformation that happens in the invisible. While everything outside rushes, you choose to pause. While others accumulate stimuli, you release the unnecessary. And that constant choice for the essential reflects in everything you do afterward. Because when you've returned to yourself, everything changes. Your words weigh less but go deeper. Your gaze becomes clearer, your energy more refined. And others, even without knowing what happened, notice it. They feel you're different, more centered, more clear within. That is one of the deepest signs that your energy is special. Not only do you need to be alone, you know what to do with your solitude. You don't get bored with yourself. You're not uncomfortable in your own presence. You've cultivated a relationship with your inner world that doesn't depend on external noise to feel valid. And in that intimacy with yourself, you become strong without becoming hard, clear without becoming cold, deep without disconnecting from life. Sign number 4. You transform the environment without realizing it. You don't need to intervene or stand out or take a central role. Just by arriving, something changes. You don't know exactly what it is, but you've noticed it. Conversations take a different direction. The tone softens, the pace shifts. The atmosphere modifies, as if your presence activates a new frequency. You don't have to try to make an impact. Your energy does it for you. And it's not because it's overpowering, but because it's genuine. In a world used to forced vibrations, authenticity resonates as something rare and deeply magnetic. Where there is chaos, you bring calm. Where there is rigidity, you open space for flexibility. Where there is coldness, you activate a silent warmth that doesn't come from the body, but from the soul. It's as if your vibrational field communicates with spaces, and the spaces respond. Some people seek you out without knowing why. They only know they feel different around you. Not necessarily better, but more connected to themselves. Because your energy doesn't numb, it reveals. And that transforms. There are places where after you leave, something feels different. A long pending conversation finally happens, a new idea appears, a conflict resolves with no logical explanation. You're not doing magic, you're just being you. And your simple way of being reconfigures your surroundings. You don't need recognition for this, nor do you wish to manipulate the effect. But you know it happens, because you've seen it too many times to doubt it. You've entered dense spaces and without saying a word, the environment lightened. You've touched someone without the intention to heal, and they felt different. You've offered a presence so firm, so serene, that others felt safe enough to let their guard down just because you never raised yours. That isn't trained, it's not learned, it's cultivated through experience, through falling, through introspection. Your energy didn't become special by chance. It became special because you chose to keep being yourself, even when it was easier to pretend. And that choice left a mark in your energy field, a mark that isn't seen, but is felt. A mark that extends beyond your body, beyond your words, and touches everything that enters your presence. You don't impose order, but order appears. You don't give motivational speeches, but the way you look already invites reflection. It's as if your energy carries a wordless message that the environment recognizes even before you speak. You've noticed that some people become more honest around you. Their posture shifts, their tone softens. Something in them, something deep, disarms. Not because you disarm them, but because the structure they use to protect themselves no longer feels necessary. Being with you is, in a way, taking off the armor, without fear of being exposed. That capacity for transformation is not superficial. It's not about charisma or personality. It's about what your energy emits when you're aligned with yourself, when you no longer need to prove anything, or defend, or compete, when you're simply present and that is enough. You've learned that subtle is not weak, that the deepest effect doesn't always come with grand gestures. Sometimes it's enough to enter a space and not add noise. Enough with a pause, with a presence that doesn't interrupt but also doesn't disappear. A presence that holds the moment without needing to control it. That too is what transforms, your way of not interfering, of letting things be as they are, without judgment, without urgency, without agenda. And in that allowance, many things reorganize themselves. Your energy is like a frequency that reminds others that not everything has to be forced, that there is a way of being, of speaking, of feeling that comes from the center, not from impulse or reaction. And when you embody that vibration, you offer it without imposing it, you simply hold it. And that simple act changes whatever it touches. You don't transform because you want to change others. You transform because you remain true to yourself. And that, even though it seems like an individual decision, has a collective echo. Because when someone aligns with themselves, everything around them starts to reconfigure. Sometimes you feel it physically, an energy moving through the room, a change in temperature, a sense that the air flows differently. You can't explain it, but you know something has been activated. And it wasn't a coincidence, it was your vibration in action, reorganizing what was already ready to transform. You're not always aware of the effect you have. In fact, most of the time you only find out when someone tells you, much later. They say something you said kept resonating for days, that after seeing you they made an important decision, that your presence helped them see what they weren't daring to face, and you're surprised, because in that moment, you were just being you. That's also part of this sign. You don't plan to transform, you simply do. Your energy works on deeper levels than logic. It goes straight to the heart of things. Where it finds rigidity, it generates movement. Where it finds denial, it plants clarity. Where it finds confusion, it clears the path to discernment. That's why sometimes people can't be around you for long. Not because you're invasive, but because you're a catalyst. Your energy accelerates internal processes that some aren't ready to sustain. And even though that can hurt, you've learned to let go, to understand that your task isn't to hold on, but to offer, and let each person choose what to do with what they receive. You're not a permanent refuge. You are a transformative pause, a moment of deep connection that marks a before and after. Sometimes they stay, sometimes they move on, and in both cases, your presence leaves a mark. This effect also manifests in places. There are spaces where you feel your energy expand, and others where it contracts. You've noticed that certain environments change the moment you enter. A window opens, a candle is lit, someone takes a deeper breath. Small gestures that seem casual, but are intuitive responses to the field you bring with you. And not only do others change, you perceive yourself differently depending on the environment. You know your energy needs to be cared for like a garden, that there are spaces where it blooms and others where it withers, even if it seems right to be there. You've had to learn to protect that transformative power, because giving it without limits left you exhausted, because offering it where it wasn't valued eventually dimmed it. And little by little, without hardening, you've refined your discernment. Where do I bloom? Where do I wither? Where does my energy transform? And where does it drain? That self-knowledge is part of your deepest transformation, because now you don't just create change in others, you also choose consciously where, when, and with whom to share your energy. That ability to transform has also made you extremely sensitive to detail, but not external details. Vibrational ones. The kind almost no one perceives. How the atmosphere in a room shifts with a single word, how an unexpressed emotion can color an entire conversation, how someone's inner chaos shows in the way they take up space. You notice everything, but not as an outside observer. You feel it from within, as if you enter the frequency of each situation. And that kind of connection is never neutral. When you step into it, you also move it, adjust it, whether or not you mean to. Transformation doesn't always mean immediate improvement. Sometimes your energy brings discomfort. It reveals what was hidden, breaks down rigid structures, triggers repressed emotions. And even though that might seem negative, it's exactly that movement that allows true change to occur. There are people who blame you for that effect. They say everything was fine until you arrived. And they don't mean it to hurt you, but they use it to avoid facing what your presence stirred in them. You've had to learn that not all the shifts you trigger will be welcomed. Some will be rejected, at least at first. And that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means your energy touched a sensitive point, one that needed attention. Your energy doesn't smooth things over with surface-level sweetness. It transforms them from the root, and that, though it may not be comfortable, is profoundly necessary. You've also discovered that the more you align with yourself, the more powerful the effect becomes. Because it doesn't come from a desire to transform. It comes from the depth with which you inhabit your own center. The more true your frequency is, the more everything it touches is impacted. That's why you take care of yourself now, not out of fear, but out of awareness. You know you can't be just anywhere, or share yourself with just anyone, or expose yourself to energies that pull you out of alignment. You know your energy creates waves, that what you think, what you don't say, what you choose and what you refuse has an effect. And so now, your decisions come from a different place. Not from obligation or expectation, but from an inner clarity cultivated in silence, in depth, in truth. Sign number 5. You attract experiences and people that reflect your inner evolution. Your energy acts like a silent magnet, not toward what your mind wants, but toward what resonates with who you truly are. And that has caused your surroundings to shift radically over your life. Every time you change within, you're not someone who can stay long in places where there's no longer growth. Your energy runs dry in low frequencies, as if something inside you starts to slowly shut down, telling you it's time to let go. And when you do, the universe responds with precision. New people, unexpected situations, paths you never imagined appear right after the inner leap. Not because you're seeking them, but because you've stopped resisting. Your vibration sets the rhythm of what arrives, and that's why not everyone can remain by your side. There are relationships that fade without conflict, projects that fall apart for no apparent reason, offers that once felt perfect and suddenly no longer feel right. It's not chaos, it's energetic cleansing. Your frequency shifts, and with it, everything that's not aligned begins to dissolve. And although that sometimes hurts, it's also liberation. You know this. You've been through intense empty spaces where everything familiar seemed to drift away, where you even doubted yourself. But in that space of apparent loss, something more authentic always emerged. More yours. More real. Because you can't hold on to what doesn't resonate with your truth, even if you love it, even if you understand it, even if you're attached. When it's not aligned, your energy simply won't let you betray yourself for too long. And that's why you attract deeply meaningful experiences, encounters that mark a before and after, words that arrive exactly when you need them, synchronicities that confirm you're on the right path. Life with you is not a linear sequence, it's a vibrational mirror. You've started to notice that the people who enter your life no longer do so by chance. Some bring lessons, others bring mirrors, and a few bring expansion. It doesn't matter how long they stay, because the value isn't in the time, but in the energetic intensity of that crossing. There are connections that feel like reunions, conversations that flow as if they've already happened. A glance, a phrase, a gesture, and something inside you activates, not because you need something from that person, but because your energy recognizes what their presence awakens in you. And it works the other way too. There are bonds that simply stop making sense, no conflict, no drama, as if their purpose has already been fulfilled. And your energetic field, instead of resisting, says, "Thank you, but no more." That ability to attract and release without rational explanation is a clear sign that your energy has matured. You no longer insist where there is no resonance. You no longer persist out of habit. You've understood that your vibration is the language with which you communicate with life, and when that vibration changes, everything around you must reorganize to accompany it. You've also noticed that opportunities come in waves. When you're aligned, things open up. People who speak your language without having learned it, projects that feel like natural extensions of your essence, spaces where you don't have to shrink yourself to fit. That's not luck, it's coherence, and coherence attracts. But you've also learned that this vibrational law doesn't work from desire. You can't ask the universe for something you're not yet willing to inhabit internally. Your energy doesn't respond to what you ask with words, but to what you uphold in silence, what already vibrates in you, even if it doesn't yet have form. That's why now you're more mindful of what you think, what you believe, what you allow. You know everything you feed with attention expands, that everything you repress also looks for a way out, sometimes as an external experience that forces you to look at yourself again. You don't attract what you want. You attract what resonates with who you are. And when that energy is clear, honest, cultivated, the world responds with signals so precise that you can no longer call them coincidences. They are reflections, responses, confirmations. Sometimes those signs don't arrive as moments of light, but as necessary losses, silent goodbyes, endings that seem unfair, but that deep down are just clearing the space for something more aligned. And although it hurts, you understand, your energy can no longer sustain what is out of frequency. You've lived those transitions more than once, stages where everything external fell apart, but inside there was a strange, almost suspicious calm, a formless certainty that told you, this is part of the path. And it was, because when your vibration rises, what doesn't match it can't stay, and what does, transforms. You've seen it in people who evolve with you, who change alongside you, not because you demand it, but because the shared energy also uplifts them. You felt it in places, spaces that once held you and now feel heavy. Not because they've changed, but because you can no longer shrink yourself to fit inside them. There's something in you that has always been attuned to the invisible rhythm of things. You don't move by goals alone, but by feeling. You know when something is alive and when it's just a hollow repetition. You know when a door is truly closed and when it's just waiting for you to step forward and open it. Your special energy doesn't settle where there is no vibration. That's why what you attract isn't generic. It's specific, precise, deeply personal, a conversation that feels tailor-made for you, a song that arrives just when you need it, a place where you feel you've already been even if you never have. And the more you know yourself, the more refined that magnetism becomes. You no longer seek. You no longer insist. You just keep your energy clear and allow life to align with that clarity. You've stopped chasing. You've started allowing. And what arrives no longer demands that you change your essence to deserve it. It arrives because it recognizes in you what you had already recognized in yourself. As your energy becomes more precise, it also becomes more selective, not from judgment, but from attunement, like an instrument that can no longer play just any melody, because its frequency has been tuned to resonate only with the authentic. And that shows in your smallest decisions, in where you choose to sit, in the people you choose to spend time with, in the topics you can no longer support, and in the ones that, without even trying, move you to tears. Everything that comes into your life now passes through a subtle filter. Does this ignite me or extinguish me? Does it bring peace or drain my energy? Does it reflect me or distort me? And that sensitivity doesn't isolate you, it connects you more deeply. But only with what's true, because you're not seeking relationships, opportunities, or paths. You're seeking resonance. You felt it with people you barely know, but with whom you sense an inexplicable trust. You don't need time to build the connection. The energy establishes it in seconds. You've also experienced the opposite. Old relationships that suddenly feel distant. Not from lack of love, but because there is no longer a shared vibration to sustain them. When your energy is in harmony, it transforms into a conscious magnetism. You no longer attract from a place of need, but from a sense of completeness. Not out of urgency, but from a state of alignment. And that's when everything shifts. You stop accepting things that don't respect you. You no longer make excuses for what harms you. You no longer force what resists the flow, because you've realized that anything built by denying your true self will eventually break you. You've come to understand that your energy isn't here to simply adapt to any life. It's here to create its own. And what aligns with that will naturally come, no need to chase after it. You attract what reflects your deepest truth. The more you stay rooted in that truth, the clearer your experiences become, the more sacred your presence is, and the more precisely the universe mirrors you. You've sensed your energy is unique, and now you understand why. It wasn't just a fleeting thought, it wasn't mere chance, it was your soul communicating with you in silence all along, waiting for you to remember, because you didn't come here to blend in, you came to resonate, to evolve, to embody a frequency that doesn't require universal understanding, only reverence from you. And if this message resonated with you, if you felt a sense of connection, if you recognized a part of yourself that others might overlook, perhaps you're ready to keep listening to what words can't express, but your soul knows. Subscribe and let's continue uncovering together what the mind cannot explain, but the heart has always understood.